Hello and welcome to my first Pioneer video on Arena, since they renamed Explorer into Pioneer. Even though we're still technically missing a few cards, we can still build most of the competitive archetypes. And today we're taking a look at a red-white equipment deck, which of course got a huge upgrade with Final Fantasy, introducing a lot of equipment synergies. And one of those is Cloud Midgar Mercenary, a 2-drop that gets to tutor up whatever equipment we want. And then as long as Cloud is equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it triggers, that ability triggers an additional time, which can actually come up in this deck with cards like Lavaspur Boots, giving a creature normally 1 extra power, haste, and ward 1. But if Cloud is equipped by the boots and our opponent tries to target it, now the ward ability, which is also triggered ability, will happen twice, so essentially giving Cloud ward 2. And we're also playing with Corey Steelcutter, banned in Standard, but still finds a nice home in Pioneer, and this can also maybe trigger twice if we equip it onto Cloud, making double the amount of Monk tokens, so that's also potentially worthwhile. And another huge addition is Raban, a 2-drop with a ward, making the opponent pay life equal to its power, and when Raban attacks we get to attach up to 1 target equipment we control to target attacking creature, so it doesn't have to be Raban itself, but thanks to that ward ability it's usually the preferred recipient. And of course the main equipment we want to equip for free is Colossus Hammer, only 1 mana to play, but 8 mana to equip normally to give +10/+10, and the creature loses flying, so that's a huge boost that we can potentially give to our creatures, and with Raban we can do so for free. We also have Kemba as another way to maybe equip a Colossus Hammer or some other equipment for free when it enters, or whenever another cat enters, and for 5 mana we can make a 2/2 cat token, so that can also maybe equip things for free. And then we also have the full set of Sigarda's Aid, which is an enchantment letting us play aura and equipment spells as though they had flash, so we can now play those at instant speed, and whenever an equipment we control enters we can attach it to target creature we control once again for free. So that's another wombo combo with Colossus Hammer, being able to flash it in, giving a creature +10/+10 at instant speed. Can also set up some nice turn 3 kills in this deck. So that's our primary game plan. We have 12 ways to equip Colossus Hammer for free between Sigarda's Aid, Kemba, and Raban, and we essentially have 10 copies of Colossus Hammer if you also count our tutor effects, with Cloud being 4 additional copies, and Kellen can also use its adventure to tutor up an aura or equipment, so that can also find our hammer for us. So essentially 10 hammers, 12 ways to equip for free. That's the backbone of this deck, but we can also eventually get there with other equipment synergies, with Cutter making Monk tokens, and with Leyline Axe also potentially starting on the battlefield if it's in our opening hand, and then 3 mana to equip, giving +1/+1, a double strike, and trample, so that also combines very nicely with the Colossus Hammer, preventing the opponent from simply chum blocking or 10+ powered creature. And then some other equipment include the boots, as we mentioned, another way to cheaply give haste, very good at setting up Raban or Kemba so they can immediately attack, maybe equipping a Colossus Hammer for free in the process. Then a Shadow Spear for trample and lifelink can also be useful against other aggro decks if we're in a racing situation, and occasionally the ability to remove hexproof and indestructible can also come up. And then we've got 1 removal spell with Chainsaw, dealing 3 damage when it enters, so that can also maybe rack up some rev counters and eventually suit up one of our creatures for additional power. And then we've got our 2 Steel Cutters and 4 Leyline Axe. And then since we have so many cheap legendary creatures, Mox Amber also makes a lot of sense as a cheap way to be able to empty out our hand as quickly as possible, and then can also maybe trigger Steel Cutter on turn 2 already, just play Cutter into Mox Amber, immediately make a Monk, so these two also have amazing synergy. And then our 1 mana legends include Skrelv as a cheap way to protect our more valuable 2-drops, and then 2 copies of Zack can pay 1 mana, sacrifice it to give our creature indestructible and a +1 counter, maybe moving some equipment around as well. So these are also important for enabling an early Mox Amber to set up those explosive starts. And then we've mentioned all the 2 mana creatures. The mana base needs to have a lot of white mana for the double white on Cloud, so we don't want to have any mountains if possible, instead just as many red-white dual lands that enter untapped in the early turns as possible, and Aiganjo can occasionally be channeled, offering additional interaction. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. We have Sigarda's Aid with Colossus Hammer, Raban. So we're a bit creature light, but we've got the tools to present a lot of damage very quickly. Leyline Axe is a turn late. So yeah, can start with Sigarda's Aid, can start with Boots. I guess I'll play the aid. Possible we draw a 1-mana creature and want to equip it for free. Opponent mono-red with Burning Tree, so kind of a go-wide deck. And maybe they've got the various surge cards to pump up their team, like the Bushwhacker. For now, I don't think we play Raban when we cannot pump it up. So then Chainsaw, take out Burning Tree is reasonable. We'll take out the Burning Tree, and then next turn I can play Raban and immediately suit it up with a hammer, at which point a red deck's gonna have a hard time removing it. Yeah, that looks okay. And just do it all main phase so they can't respond with a burn spell. And then next turn Kellen could get Shadow Spear for lifelink and trample. So they would need artifact removal pretty much. And yeah, opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Hand seems functional. Free Leyline Axe, turn 1 boots. Don't know if we want to play Raban on 2 or if we wait until turn 3 to equip it. So we can give Raban haste with the boots and then equip a Leyline Axe for free. Opponent's black-white. And a Hallowblade, so likely a Greasefang kind of vehicle reanimator deck. Cloud we could still play. And then get a Colossus Hammer. Seems better than Kellen here. And Colossus Hammer, of course, opens up some powerful possibilities. Opponent end of turn can discard to the Hallowblade. Maybe see Parhelion go to the graveyard. I guess this could also be an Oculus Reanimator deck. The Gardens could also point towards some sort of Monuments discard deck. So there's still a few possibilities. Opponent kept up 3 mana, so going for the Raban play now is a little bit sketchier. So we could go Cutter plus Hammer, immediately trigger the Cutter, and then next turn we can maybe Raban, haste, equip a bunch of stuff for free. Also important to note, if we were to put boots on Cloud, it essentially gains Ward 2, since the Ward 1 trigger happens twice. And then don't really want to attack into the Hallowblade. Although if they have to discard now, maybe they're not getting the full benefit from it, as opposed to if they have some sort of payoff for discarding in play. So they will activate Hallowblade, discarding a land. That's fine. So we could go with Raban, equip Cutter for haste and trample, and then suit up Hammer for free. Our opponent's still playing it passively. So yeah, we don't have to go for the Raban line if we suspect instant speed removal. Kellen could get another equipment, like another Cutter, and then I could go Adventure Kellen, play Cutter, trigger the first one, start going wide. I guess Shadow Spear can remove Indestructible from the Hallowblade, so that's another interesting line we have available. So yeah, a few ways to approach it. Don't hate the Shadow Spear line. Can still cast it to trigger Steel Cutter. And then I can start by attacking. And leaving Shadow Spear's ability available. And then second main, maybe equip the boots. So I'll let damage happen. Opponent had a Naiganjo. Fair enough, that works. And then may as well equip onto the monk. Alright, so it's a bit of a waiting game, but we've got the tools to eventually get there, maybe in a single attack. Sheltered by ghosts, can maybe get rid of the Colossus Hammer as well. Goes for Shadow Spear. Take 4. And another Hallow Blade. Okay, so right now if I were to play Raban and equip it with the boots, I can get the hammer, but we would be missing out on trample. I guess I could equip the cutter as well, so then we do have trample but not double strike, so it's not quite a one-hit KO. Yeah, interesting spot. I think I do go for Raban anyways. And then cutter for trample and haste. And then I guess I'll put an extra boots on it as well. Opponent takes it, does have ward 14, so if they have another Sheltered by Ghosts, they can't necessarily pay for it, so they would have to go for one of the actual equipment. But yeah, I guess we could still be getting Grease Fanged, but no, opponent explodes, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Get to start with Leyline Axe, turn 1. It's kind of an interesting choice. I guess we can start with Lava Spur Boots. Small chance we draw into Sigarda's Aid and we'll want Hammer still in hand, and we actually did. Otherwise I can still play Raban and then next turn equip the Hammer. Not having a third land could potentially hurt us. Otherwise, yeah, I think maybe Cloud to bait out removal and then take it from there. And what to get here. Already have Colossus Hammer, could get a second one because of Sigarda's Aid. Although now a discard spell could set us back. It's going to be a Dark Confidant, so that's fine. And we drew a third land as well. So I can play Sigarda's Aid, attack with Cloud, and if they take it, double Colossus Hammer. Is there a better line available? Raban with haste, but then I can't hammer, so it would just be with double strike. Yeah, I guess presenting lethal here is worthwhile. And then we would still have a Raban as a leftover, so we can give it haste and at least equip a single hammer. Opponent takes it, expecting only one copy here. But as it turns out, we've got 2. I can already picture Cloud dual-wielding Colossus Hammers. So there we go, one of the many ways we can present lethal on turn 3. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a pretty awkward one. Double Aid, double Amber, Raban, no equipment. So this hand could still work if we draw either Colossus Hammer or a way to tutor it up. So that's 10 draw steps basically that fit that description. Otherwise this hand is not very good. So I think we take a mulligan. This one's a bit better. Still not perfect, but I'll give it a try. So the curve might be Cloud, and then turn 3 play Hammer that we tutored up into Kemba. So I do need a third land, and then second Kemba versus Cutter is kind of the decision. Maybe I do want a second Kemba if the first one gets removed. We'll want another cheap way to equip Colossus Hammer. Vote on the green-white, a Lenor Elves. Maybe an Angel Life Gain deck. Alright, Raban now gives us an alternative line where we play Raban now, and then next turn Cloud Hammer can immediately equip. Could see Skyclave Apparition, which can also hit our equipment. For now, just another Mystic. Okay. Stick to the plan. And get Hammer. Opponent can of course chump block if they'd like, but then they're losing a mana source. And our opponent was also maybe just missing double white for a Skyclave Apparition. So they take it, fall to 8. So now if they do have a Skyclave, they can't pay the ward on Raban, so they would have to go for Colossus Hammer. Turns out it's more of an Elves deck with Dwynen's Elite. So now we need Trample, otherwise they can keep chumping for a long time, and Cloud number 2 should do it here. So play Cloud, and then I can go for either Shadow Spear or Steel Cutter. And then I guess we'll go for Cutters, since we can just pay 2 mana. And it's not like I need the life. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a solid hand. Got the Sigarda's Aid, Cloud get Hammer, even have the Mox Amber to speed things up. Could be weak to a discard spell taking Cloud. Although we can still maybe go for Cutter into Mox, immediately make a Monk token, so that's another nice sequence. Okay, opponent some sort of multicolor deck. So yeah, I think we stick to the plan. Could still go for the Cutter Mox Amber line just to make a Monk. And then next turn I can still Cloud Hammer and potentially suit up a Trampling token. I guess that has its advantages. So then now we're attacking for 2, and next turn it should be 14. If we can make another Monk token. And drawing the Hammer, I guess, is good too. So play Cloud, which enables Mox Amber, and then play Hammer. That resolves. So I don't need to get another Hammer. Can maybe go for the boots. And then I guess we'll Hammer now. Small chance they have a bounce spell for my token. Alright, that's 14 damage. Alright, and our opponent explodes. Nice and easy. On to the next one. And so we rank up here as well. Okay, we're on the draw with a solid opening hand. Turn 1, Sigarda's Aid. Turn 2, could start with Kellen to get the Hammer, or we can just draw it. Facing blue-red, maybe a Phoenix deck. Which now also gets to play with a Steel Cutter. Yep. So I could play Kemba, but we wouldn't necessarily get the most out of it. Could maybe adventure Kellen, get my own Steel Cutter, or the other boots for haste. I don't think I want to just play Kemba, even though it can set up Colossus Hammer on the following turn. Well, let's get the Cutter, and then we'll see what next turn brings to the table. But we could go Cutter into another 1-mana spell to get a Monk. And we can now also play the Cutter as though it had Flash. So technically I could play 2 equipment in the opponent's turn if we're worried about counter spells. Opponent's got a sleight of hand. Consider make a monk. And then they still have a mana up for possible interaction. So I'm not opposed to the Cutter plus maybe Shadow Spear in the opponent's turn. Now the Mox is an interesting twist. Would let me play Kemba, Hammer and Shadow Spear, or Kemba plus Cutter. Yeah, if I Cutter first and then Mox Amber, of course I wouldn't get to make mana since we don't have a legend in play. So the sequencing is pretty tricky. So yeah, maybe it is just Cutter plus Shadow Spear this turn. Then next turn I can play Kemba, equipping the Cutter for haste, and then I can still Hammer at instant speed. Yeah, let's try that. Opponent does not spend their 1 mana. So I can take 2. Try Cutter, possible they have a counterspell for it. And then I'll keep Colossus Hammer as a bit of a surprise here. But yeah, technically, the way Cutter triggers, we could still suit it up with the Hammer. So may as well put a Shadow Spear on the Monk. Could still get bounced. Survives 2 damage burn spells. Kemba into Mox Amber makes another Monk. So that's a decent starting point. Probably want to Mox Amber first and then Kemba. So we can immediately tap the Mox for mana. And then I'll move the Cutter. Kemba could equip the Cutter as well, so that would turn it into a 4/4. See if there's any response. And go to attackers. Even though we could also play Kellen here with a second Mox Amber. So we're already attacking for a decent amount of damage, but we still have this Colossus Hammer as a potential leftover. Prankster, that's fine. Possible they can make a Monk token to block with, but both our creatures trample. Opponent did find a Fiery Impulse, so that's 3 damage. And they're gonna Lightning Axe. Alright, so now what's the worst case scenario? Our opponent has a second Lightning Axe if I try to Colossus Hammer. I think it's still worth a shot. I guess I could also have a Spell Pierce. So equip Kemba. Maybe a 1 mana bounce spell can save them, otherwise they're taking 19 here. They could maybe block and then use Impulse to finish off the Monk token. Still not an awesome play. So it really boils down to whether or not they can answer our 14/14 Kemba. Well, our opponent is thinking long and hard about this, or possible they've disconnected. But yeah, that's why Mox Amber is pretty exciting in a deck full of cheap legendaries, setting up these explosive plays, and the synergy with Steel Cutter is pretty nice too. Being able to just trigger the Cutter on turn 2 already. Their opponent takes it, falls to 1. So now they need a pretty impressive turn to be able to deal 21 damage. No copies of Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard yet. They had a chance to discard 1 earlier. And I guess I just realized they discarded a Lightning Axe to the Lightning Axe. So had they maybe kept that one in hand, they might have been able to target Kemba in response to the Colossus Hammer, which maybe further made them want to quit. Alright, looks like our opponent's not here anymore. And get to untap, Raban. I guess we can play, but it's not really gonna make a difference. We can maybe just play Kellen pre-combat. And then another Mox Amber would trigger the cutter, although we want to keep Trample on Kemba. But yeah, our opponent might just explode here once the timer runs out. Alright, and that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, and this hand is reasonable, but it's missing a way to eventually equip a hammer for free. I think with the turn 1 Zac and Mox Amber to follow up a cutter, it's probably still good enough. Facing Yorion, so it could be a more controlling strategy. So I'll hang on to the Mox Amber for now. And then, yeah, kind of like cutter over Cloud. Play Mox, make a Monk. And attack. Now, an interaction that could come up is if we equip Cloud with a cutter and then enable the cutter, it would maybe happen twice thanks to Cloud's ability. Vanishing Verse can exile the cutter, nothing Zac can do about it. So, yeah, that's exiled. Good answer. Could still search up another copy next turn, but we wouldn't be able to make a Monk. Colossus Hammer, but again, no way to equip it for free. Still going for Clouds and get another cutter. Or do we like a Leyline Axe for some reason? Could also go for Boots, so Cloud can immediately attack. But if I get cutter now, next turn I have a chance to enable it. Could get blown out by like a temporary lockdown. But I think we still try. Trigger Prowess, attack for 3. This could just be a Niv Mizzet deck. Alright, Deafening Clarion, wipe the board. So now if I were to play Cloud, I could equip the cutter onto Cloud and then play Hammer, making 2 Monks in the process. I guess that's kind of cute. So this is my first spell. Cloud gets... Do we like a Leyline Axe? Do we like Lava Spur Boots? I mean, I guess the cutter already gives haste, so we should maybe go big with a Leyline Axe. And then we equip. And then let's see, if I play Hammer, we get 2 Monks. Can only equip one of the Monks, so maybe I should attack first. Does that make sense? Yeah, I guess so. And then I don't have to move the cutter elsewhere. Can keep it on Cloud. So that was a pretty neat interaction. Is it going to be enough to win the game? I doubt it. Opponent could bring to light and maybe get something to wipe the board. Nahiri, I see. Can exile a tapped creature.
My sword is your death knell. Witness justice.
And now Sigarda's Aid isn't bad. So can play the Aid. Play a Leyline Axe. Trigger Cutter. And then put a Leyline Axe on that same Monk token that has haste, perhaps. And then, I don't know if we quite have lethal, but at the very least we take out Nahiri, and then we should be in excellent shape. Sweet. So yeah, we got to show off this Boros equipment deck. Got some very quick wins with Colossus Hammer on turn 3. But the deck can also grind out some longer games, especially now with Cutter giving you that other angle of attack to start making monk tokens to cover some of the weakness of this equipment style of deck, where if the opponent can just take out your few creatures, then you may not have anything left to equip. Now the Cutter helps you solve that problem. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.